Hello, everyone. My name is Paola Barcasel, and my teaching simulation will be on literature logs, which you can find on page 191 of our Teaching Children's Literature It's Critical textbook. So, what are literature logs? So literature logs are a way for students to reflect on their reading experiences. It is a process that they can use to show understanding of what they are reading. Um, Literature logs are a great way for students to keep track of their responses to the books that they read, either independently, books that they're listening to during read alouds, or just to prepare themselves for literature circles. So the text didn't really specify on what grades to use literature logs for, but based on what I read, you can use this strategy with any grade. Just the way you use them will just vary depending on the grade that you will be using them with. So the materials and procedures for this strategy are as follows. For this strategy, you will need a writing tool, whether it's a pen or a pencil, something that the student can use to write with, and something to write on. So they can use a spiral notebook like the one that's shown in the image, or they can make their own homemade book. They can either just gather a bunch of pieces of paper, put them together, and just staple them on the sides, or they can create their own book by, again, gathering a bunch of pieces of paper and folding them in half, like it's shown in the image here, and stapling them on the sides. So, the procedures for this strategy, it is mentioned in the text that you should encourage students to write their own reactions, um, their own connections and questions that they have about what they're reading, instead of just having them write a summary of the story. And these entries can be done using webs, sketches, charts, favorite quotes, and diagrams, as well as written reflections. Literature logs can also take the form of bookmarks or little books that the students can place inside the book that they're reading to record their thoughts while they're reading. So, in the textbook, they mentioned an extension, which I honestly think it's great, especially to use with the younger kids. And it's called Environmental Print Books. So they're easy to read. They're predictable books for students who are beginning to read, and they're very useful when students take environmental print walks and identify things that they can read. So, what are environmental print books? So, basically, the students will make a book with labels that they find and that they can actually identify or read, in other words, that they find around their homes. So they will glue these labels onto their homemade books, and they will dictate to an adult what they want to say about each label. Now the adult will write the dictation next to the label. So as you see in this picture, the little child has the Lucky Charms cereal logo and the Trix logo on there, and the dictation was Abdullah eats Lucky Charms. So then that's more so what an environmental print book would look like. Now, after the child or the student has done this, these books will be taken home, and the student can share them with their family. So, a modification for this strategy would be to provide students with a worksheet that they can either glue or staple to their notebook as a way to help them focus on what they have to write or include in their literature logs. And I say this because, as I mentioned previously, a literature log is um, not a summary of what the student has read, but more so a reflection of what the child is reading. So, a worksheet that I would include or provide for the child would be something similar to the one that's in this slide right here. I don't think I would include the first one where it says lit log for or created by, but I would more so focus on the other two that say like chapter, pages read, and then the one that says making connections. These also serve as like sentence starters for kids who have difficulties trying to begin their sentences, or even think about like how to begin their sentences, or um, how like what to write. So I think this is an awesome worksheet because it tells the child like more so what to write. So it tells them like, you know, think of one word to describe the section that you just read. How did you feel about the section? Think of new words or important words that you read. Any important characters that you met. What was the most important event in the section here? And are there any questions or predictions that you have? Now on the next one, it says making connections. So it's, you know, letting the child know that good readers make connections as they read, and it's giving the child or the student instructions on what to do. So it says record two connections you make as you read, and then share what happened um, in the book, and then, you know, to the connections that you made. So now the way that I would implement this strategy, because I work with 3-year-olds, I um I would begin by gathering my students on the rug for a read aloud of a book about children sharing and taking turns. And the reason why I would pick a book on this topic is because this is a big topic for this age. So the first day we would read the book and discuss what is happening in the story. And the second day, I would introduce the strategy to my students and begin by telling them that sometimes as readers, we also go through some of the things that happen in books that we read. I don't think I would introduce the strategy by telling them we're going to learn about literature logs, just because my students are only 3 years old. And I mean, I think it's too much, and I don't think they would be able to get a good understanding of what it is. So I would just explain to them what we would be doing. Um, so I would mention that, you know, I would mention one thing from the book that we read the previous day. And I would obviously pick something that all of the children can relate to. So using the book from the previous day, I would model for my students how to reflect. That would be how to say how they feel, how to make connections. That would be telling us if anything that has happened to them is similar to what has happened in the story, and how to ask questions about the reading. So I will write this all on the board and attach illustrations wherever it is appropriate to help the students understand it better. So when this is all done, I will show my students homemade books that they will each have, so that they can reflect on books that they either read on their own, or that they hear through read alouds. And what I mean by reading on their own is, at this age group, my students just pick books and they start doing picture walks. So then students will be able to draw or use inventive writing to reflect on the books, and an adult in the classroom will write their narratives.